Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wisdom of Friends podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. This is a podcast where you get to learn more about your friends and community, their wisdom, their trials and tribulations, timeless insights, and their secrets. Now, let's get into the show. Please welcome your host, Cal Arras.
Hello, folks. This is your host, Cal Ross, and welcome to another season of Wisdom of Friends. I'm really excited today to be introducing you to a very dear friend of mine. Her name is Lindsey Head. Now, Lindsey is a proud wife and a mother to a 7-month-old baby boy, Carter. Professionally, she's a strategic, financial, and a visionary leader, providing business owners with proven methods and guidance that help them facilitate intelligent growth. She has always been passionate about business and entrepreneurship, and she finds her purpose in developing business ideas and helping companies succeed. Currently, she is the Chief Financial Officer for J Public Relations, also known as JPR. It's an award-winning public relations agency representing first-class luxury, lifestyle, hospitality, and travel clientele. With enthusiasm, drive, and a high-level view, Lindsey has guided JPR's financial strategy for the past 7 years. She has facilitated all aspects of planning and operational tactics to lead the agency's monumental success, expanding offices to accommodate rapid growth on the East Coast, West Coast, and now globally. For 3 consecutive years, Lindsey has been nominated to San Diego Business Journal's CFO of the Year. She also serves on the steering committee of the CFO Leadership Council, and in 2015, Lindsey participated in the California Real Estate Women Leadership Series, where she was one of the 6 panelists chosen to discuss their role in the success of the San Diego community. She's received a bachelor's in operations management information systems from Santa Clara University with a minor in information technology and society ITS. Friends, in this episode, Lindsey and we talk about the choices she had to make to reach the pinnacle of her career as a CFO in the finance industry. And now being a mom, how does she balance her work life and their family life, and yet able to deliver on all fronts with passion and success? This is really a fascinating conversation. I hope you enjoy it. So please pull up a chair and listen in. And without further ado, let's welcome the one and only Lindsey Head. So good evening, Lindsey. Welcome to another episode of Wisdom of Friends show. I'm really excited that you took some time to be on this program. So, and I remember my first impressions of you. This was almost 10 years ago, almost a decade ago. I can't believe this. Yeah. I'd come from the Midwest to San Diego, and we were part of this leadership body and team in the community, and we were like one of those leadership folks that were committed to making a transformation in our society and our organizations and our community. And I remember walking into that center, and you were one of the first people who came and greeted me and welcomed me and befriended me. And I was like, wow, she's got such incredible warmth and passion, and just and that was something that stuck with me. Your leadership, your passion for life, and since then we've been good friends. And I know we kind of like worked in San Diego for quite a few years on that leadership team, and then you moved to Seattle on a different project. I moved to Seattle on a different project, and now you went back to San Diego. So yeah, it's been such an amazing journey over the last decade. So I really appreciate you taking the time to be on this call, and so welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I can't believe it's been 10 years either. That is crazy. So this is very, very exciting. I'm honored to be here. I'm just excited to go through this to be part of your project and be part of the show. Thank you so much.
Yeah, excellent. So one of the ways that we kick off our show, Lindsey, is with a very simple question. And the question is, what's your favorite quote or philosophy that you live by? And how have you applied it to your life?
That is a great question. I've always believed in the quote, the best way to predict your future is to create it. And that's something that hangs above my door to this day, has always hung above my front door in multiple places where I've lived. And, it's like when you're leaving the house, it's always a reminder for me. And I feel that, when I learned this concept of creating your life and really that you're in control of that, you have the power to do that, I think it stuck with me. And that was, yes, definitely over 10 years ago, and really at a pivotal point in my life where I was like, this is my life. I am responsible for my life and whatever happens in my life. And I really took that to heart. And I think every decision I made, good or bad or whatever it may be, it was like, this is my journey and this is where it's supposed to go because I'm creating every step of it. And that's something that has always stuck with me and something I live by to this day.
No, I totally like that. It's like, and I think you're a shining example of how to create a life by design. And and really, I also want to congratulate you because August 2nd was your first year anniversary, wasn't it? For your marriage anniversary.
Yes, it was. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations on that. And you have a wonderful 7-month baby boy, Carter, and a very cute little kid. I've seen some pictures, really a cute baby. So that's awesome. And for the benefit of the audience, I just want to kind of give you a little background here. Lindsey is a strategic and financial and visionary leader, providing business owners with guidance that help them facilitate intelligent growth. She's always been passionate about business and entrepreneurship. And currently she works as a chief financial officer for J Public Relations, an award-winning public relations agency representing first-class luxury lifestyle, hospitality, and travel clientele. And this is such an incredible career that you've had, Lindsey. And what I'm curious about is, how did this journey begin? Did you always know that this was the field that you wanted to get into? Or what was the story like? How did that story unfold for you in your own words? What would you say?
It's kind of a funny story. I got into finance directly out of college, which I did not study finance, but I ended up in a money management firm. And it was so funny. I started there and I was like, well, I didn't really love finance, but then I realized how much it connected to business and how businesses operated. And I was like, oh, I love it now. And it grew, I found passion in that. I was like, okay, all the pieces fit together, because I had studied and got a degree in operations and management information systems, which is like computer science with business. So I didn't touch really finance and accounting in my traditional education, right? But I ended up in business. I said, oh, now it all makes sense, because all the pieces I studied that I was interested in technology, and then this missing piece of like finance and accounting all made sense at that point because it all was intertwined. So I went in, I was in finance, and then I ended up in hedge fund accounting, which was a very niche type of accounting, which I didn't love. It wasn't my passion. But then I met somebody, and I met the owner of J Public Relations. We call it JPR. And it was funny. The question was, do you know something about accounting or money? And we were on an HOA together, and I said, I do. And I had met her, and I understood the concept of her company, and I said, you have an amazing culture that you're already creating here, and I saw it, and it just really resonated with me, and as the type of person I was, or I am, and I said, gosh, someday I feel that this is going to grow, and I will help you in the very early stages. In 2008, that started. So I helped consulting. I was consulting for them in 2008, and saw the potential, saw the vision of the company. And at that point, they had only like 7 employees. And that's where it began. But it began with a relationship. We were on an HOA together, the owner and myself, and we had a conversation, and it was like, do you know anything about this? And I said, absolutely, I do. But then from there, I looked at the vision and just the vision of the company, and I knew it was headed somewhere, and I knew at some point, and I believed also that I'd be part of it for the long road. So that was in 2008, 2009, and even when I lived in Seattle, which we'll get into, I stayed connected because I had always admired the company, and it was growing so quickly, and I was lucky enough to always be a resource for them as a consultant. And then when it made sense to turn back to San Diego to be closer to my sister and family down this way, that it made sense to join them full time and as their, as the CFO.
No, that's great. And I now, looking at some of the accomplishments here, the company JPR has experienced some monumental success, and it's expanded offices on the East Coast, West Coast, and now and globally, including an office in London. And you've had some direct contribution with your leadership to help the company achieve double-digit revenue growth. Now, that's so inspiring. And so what I'm curious about, Lindsey, is are you originally from Truckee, California, if my memory serves me right?
Yes.
Yeah, so
Fan.
so what I'm curious about is what did your parents do, and how did that shape your life growing up?
Good question. So first, Truckee was such a tiny town. I think there was 8,000 people when I was growing up that actually lived there. On the weekends, it would double in population because of the ski and snowboard community, people coming there for vacation. But in living there and growing up, there was a very, very small town. My mom was a teacher, a special education teacher for the entire district. So she went through all the schools because of her specialty education, being a special ed teacher, that they needed her at all the schools because there weren't that many children, so she serviced all of them. But she did that, and we always continuously, I say we, my sister and I, continuously helped her in her classroom and, got to be with the kids at a very, very young age. But we did that from the time we were young all the way till we graduated high school. We helped with my mom's classroom, and there was a lot of severely disabled children all the way up to learning disabled, a little more, mild. But I really think that taught me a lot about compassion, a lot about patience, and she was just was an incredible teacher, retired now, but she was so well respected in the community, and it was just such an amazing way to grow up. I just seen that compassion and who she was to other people and to other families of these children. And my dad was the director of the public utility district in Lake Tahoe. So you see all the little signs that say keep Tahoe blue, which is kind of responsible for a lot of that. Had to keep the sewer and water in check. So there was never, obviously there were sewer issues and sometimes overflows and sewer spills, which was terrible. But so he oversaw the water and sewer department district basically around Lake Tahoe. And both of my parents literally worked in the same job for 30 plus years and retired. So it was very interesting to watch them live their life because I learned a lot about myself. I didn't see myself in one place for 35 years. I just think the model of, working has changed a lot for people. But I also saw very, very committed, loyal employees, per se, to their profession, and they love their profession. So one big thing that did alter kind of my life is that my dad had a passion for restoring classic cars. And so he always had a passion on the side and always had his job that he was committed to day in and day out and for our family. But he had a passion for classic cars, and that when he retired, he really launched a very successful eBay business restoring classic cars. And so we grew up, using the wrenches and putting the windshields in cars and working on old engines. I mean, that was what I grew up doing.
Wow.
But to see my dad balance both, and we would help him with all, the car work. And it was such a unique thing for young girls, my sister and I, to be doing. Everyone's like, you know how to change the oil? You know how to change a tire? It's that's what we did.
No, that's so great. Really great and very inspiring. So, and I think having the ability to juggle many things, I think that skill is probably that you've, I'm getting that you're getting it from your parents there, and a kind of like a loyalty and commitment and, the longevity of 30 years on a job. I mean, that's in today's day and age, it's so unheard of. And that must take some real great commitment and passion for what they did. So, no, that's so awesome. The next question I do have for you is, when you look back at your life up until now, what would you say were one or two turning points? When you look at someone's life, they have these strategic inflection points, if you will. So when you look at your life, what would you say were one of the major turning points for you?
Good question. So one big one that stands out for me was after college, I was trying to find internships. I was trying to get a job, and then I made a decision to actually spend the money I had earned through college working and go to Europe with an open-ended ticket. by myself. So I bought a ticket. I went by myself. My family at that time, they thought I was crazy. There were no cell phones. I didn't have a cell phone. And I was traveling abroad. And I basically had a one-way ticket for months. And I said, I'm going, and I have a book, and I'm going to go backpacking and stay in hostels. So I went, and I really had zero plans. I just knew I had like one of the Let's Go travel book, and I knew I could find hostels. And I went, and I ended up meeting so many different people. I learned so much about my life. And just about who I am as a person. I had to trust myself. I had to be resourceful. I had to just really dig deep and trust the process. I mean, I knew I was always like adventurous, and I felt like I was like a smart person in the world, out there. And I don't know. I just had that in my heart to always go and travel. So I did. And one of the turning points was when I was out there, I got an email from my mentor who I had, and I was really lucky enough to have since I was 18. I also worked for her. That's how I got to know her. Through college, she sent me an email saying, call me now, big opportunity. And I remember being in a phone booth in France, talking to her, because I called her using, at that time, the phone callers and all that stuff. And she says, you need to get on a plane and move back to California. Get back to California. You're moving to San Diego. And I said, what? She says, we're starting a company and you're hired.
Wow.
And I said, you've got to be kidding. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I could say, no, I'm going to keep traveling. Or I could really listen and say, this is somebody who I've trusted, who's, been like self-made, her own self-made success, and who I really trusted with all my heart. And I said, you know what? I'll be there. And I literally got to take my ticket back, I think, in the next 10 days. And I said, I'll be home, and I'll drive to San Diego. So I drove home, packed up my stuff, and I drove to San Diego.
Wow.
And yeah, and that's what it was when we started the company from the ground up. I was part of every single part of it. I learned, launching the company, establishing the legal entities, setting up, the right accountants, the right vendors, meeting with people, understanding the business. We were managing multi-millions of dollars for high net worth investors, high net worth individuals who were investing their money with us. And it was just the most eye-opening, biggest learning experience of my life, and probably, the biggest turning point of my life, because I could still be in Europe traveling around and, who knows, giving tours of the Colosseum, but that just changed my life.
No, that is so great. And that brings up another question, and I'm really curious here. So you had that moment of choice, that decision point where you could have remained in Europe and still continued traveling, because obviously you're an adventurer by heart. You like to explore places. And then there's this email that you get from your mentor who offers you an opportunity to say, come down to San Diego. And you have no idea what that job is like, what it's going to look like, but you decide to go with that. With that opportunity. So what I'm really curious about is what tilted your decision and going towards that opportunity and not continue staying? Was there like a thought process, or what was your decision process when you made that call?
I think at that moment, I obviously weighed the pros and cons. I said, this isn't a call this isn't me going for a blind interview somewhere. This is through somebody that I think I highly respected, or I absolutely do to this day, and did at that time highly respected. I held her in reverence. I knew that she was just a really loving, caring person who really did have my best interest at heart. And I think weighing that versus I could be in Europe for, another year. I could stay here. I could literally do, tours and use my English and, whatever. I could do whatever I wanted. I could have that freedom, but I could also move back and know that I was kind of starting on the path of something, and it was also going to be exciting. And I think I had to sit there for a moment and think, that's also an adventure. Europe's been an adventure, but I've been here for 3.5 months already, or 4 months at that point. So I looked at it like going back is also going to be an adventure. It's just like the next step in my adventure and my journey. So I know that's what it was. And, I never looked back. I knew that was the best decision I ever made, was getting back on that plane. But the thought process really was, do I trust this person? Does San Diego make sense? What could my life look like? And is it a go or is it not? And that's kind of what I went through. And I knew wherever I was going to be, San Diego was a great place. And I trusted this person. We'd figure it out. So I did.
No, that is beautiful. That's really awesome. And this can be so beneficial for some of our listeners when they reach a decision point in their life, come at a crossroads of life. And, both of them could look appealing. But it's really about taking a step back and evaluating the pros and cons and then trusting your judgment. It seems like that's what you did, and it turned out so great for you. So that's really awesome. And that brings me to the next question, Lindsey, is, talking about mentors. So obviously this mentor definitely had such a big impression on you. So who are some of your other mentors that you looked up to growing up, or what fascinated you about them?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I would say I admire people who speak with true authenticity, that they know themselves. You feel that, I love it when people don't try to always know the answer to everything. I love someone who can be honest and can say, I don't know the answer, but trust me, I will be here and we're going to figure it out together. I think I really, really admire that in someone when they can help you work through scenarios and have those qualities that, I think when you look at people, you try to, some people just come across as not real, or they're trying to fluff themselves up. And it's you always see right through that. I feel like a lot of times, sometimes I haven't, right? But I really admire people who have kind of paved the path for themselves, have taken the steps to create their life. And it's really obvious when people do that, because they're just seem so at ease with where they are and who they are in life. And yes, they may or may not have been super successful at times, or they've gone in ways, but you see them and they're really exuding happiness, and you know that you can trust that, and that nobody's perfect, but I think they're real about it too. So a mentor to me is somebody that I can look at. Typically it's when someone who, yes, has been successful in something they're passionate about, and they give true wisdom, and they can speak to you with honesty. They don't have all the answers, but they will tell you what they do know and what they believe, and they have your best interests at heart. And the other thing I always learned is no one's going to have your best interest more, in life than you have to have it for yourself. You really have to truly be for yourself, not what's the word? I can't even say, to disregard other people, but you really have to care about your life, because nobody else is going to care about it as much as you can care about it yourself. But some people will guide you as a mentor and give you those words or that guidance or those opportunities, and you have to follow that if it makes sense with what path you're on.
No, I like that. I think, that's so great. And so two things that I hear you say is, one is authenticity, and someone who's willing to admit that they may not know all the answers, but they're willing to be real with you. And secondly, you also got to take into account the fact that, nobody cares about you more than you can care about yourself. And I think those are two valuable points that our listeners can take on in their lives when choosing mentors and, designing a life that they really find it passionate. And so one of the other questions that I have, and having interviewed so many guests on the show so far, and one of the common trends or the threads that through line, if you will, that's emerged is most of these successful people have encountered challenges, right? It's just a given of life, you kind of live life, you're going to have these setbacks, but they've had a different point of view, right? They use that as a platform to take on even bigger challenges. And my question to you is, what is your favorite failure? And what I mean by that is that in that moment when it occurred, that failure turned into a major success down the road.
I love it. So one of my biggest, I would say, there was a time when I chose to leave a job and work for myself. And it was a very challenging decision just because I didn't know how it was going to turn out. And I went on my own. I worked for myself about 1.5 years, and I was young. I didn't quite know where my passion lied. I didn't quite know what skills I really had to deliver on, my own business at that time. And I felt like it was a failure because I didn't quite make it. The timing wasn't right. The timing wasn't right for me emotionally. Timing wasn't right in the market, in just the job market for me to go out on my own. I didn't quite understand what my capabilities were to really succeed at that. And I think it was a really, really big learning lesson for myself because it gave me some clarity. And although I went back to a job that I didn't love after that because I was feeling like I wasn't making ends meet, I said, I just have to take a job. But it was because I didn't have the clarity of who I was, and I didn't have the clarity of my skill set being of what value I now know it is in the world and in like workplace and kind of in the industry that I work in now, or in any, business industry or business right now. But I didn't have that at that time, and I felt like that was a failure because I totally didn't make it. I didn't know what to charge for my services. I didn't know how to set it up the way that I needed it to work. I didn't know, so much that I know now. So I think that was a huge eye-opener, and it just gave me a lot of clarity for creating the success I have found now in the roles that I've been in.
No, that is such a fantastic example. It's like you took a plunge into starting your own business and not having the clarity. There were some struggles along the way, but all that experience, it seems like down the road, gave you the kind of inner strength to really use it as a platform to succeed in knowing what your real true gifts are. And no, that's really awesome. So, talking about some of your favorite hobbies and interests, I know you probably Carter must be keeping you busy all day long.
Carter, he's so fun. He is so much fun. He's my hobby now. My husband, I just adore my husband, and we love to travel. We've toted Carter all over the world, all over the country. We took on 2 flights already. The guy already has so many miles.
No, that is so great. So let me ask you this: what's your favorite place to travel with Carter and your husband, and what about this place you value so much?
Well, we love New York. New York is where my husband and I met. It does hold a place in my heart, obviously, for that reason. Carter hasn't been there yet, but he will be there on Monday. So we're traveling there on Monday for the first time with him. So that is great. Obviously, Paris. I don't know, we didn't mention this, but my husband and I eloped to Paris. So a year ago when we had our wedding anniversary, we were in Paris, France, right near the Eiffel Tower, and we made the decision to elope. So that obviously, if we ever go back to Paris, or when we go back to Paris, we'll have just an amazing place in our hearts.
Wow. Yeah, I think it was August 2nd, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
That's great. That's so great. So let me ask you this. Having traveled to all these different places and having experienced the ebb and flow of life, and so now when you look back at life, or when you look at life now, what would you say is your definition of success, and how would you define greatness?
Ooh. Definition of success for me is feeling true happiness and freedom. And freedom doesn't mean just the time freedom, but it's more flexibility, knowing that I'm in a position that I have flexibility to manage my life, manage my family, manage my personal side of life, and do a great job in the role that I'm in. That to me is success. That just feels right, if I don't have to worry. I arrived 10 minutes late. I remember I had a job where I was clocking in and clocking out, and I can't tell you the stress and anxiety I've had when they say you're staying 3 minutes later because you got here 3 minutes late this morning. I'm like, I drove 45 minutes to get to this job, and you're making me stay 3 minutes late. No problem. But I remember how much stress that created in my life was just like, I'm doing all the best I can, and I hit traffic or whatever it was. And now being in a place that's more understanding of just the work-life balance, that to me is success. Having that balance and having the flexibility for me is success and true happiness. I mean, I think reaching this point of like having a family, having all these things that I didn't know I was on the path to have, but I believed it. I just didn't know when. Having that like come true in my reality is like, it's true success for me. And what was the other question you said?
It's like, how would you define greatness?
Greatness to me would be when somebody finally finds their passion and they're able to obviously make a living really, really being who they are and finding their passion doing that. And I think I'm almost there. There's some things along that line that, there's other projects and things that I have, or that my stores and I have, but greatness to me would be just finding your true self and being able to make money at it and really just living your life 100% true to who you are.
Oh, I like that. That's so great. I think, I totally dig that. I think it's finding your true calling and making a living at that. And then success for you is freedom and personal happiness, and that's so great. So moving on to the next section of the show, and this is some of the questions that we've gotten from our audience, and the first question for you, Lindsey, is what, in your opinion, stops people from achieving their full potential?
Straight off the bat, I think it's fear. I think it's fear of failure and fear of doing something and having to be responsible for it. So it's almost safer and easier to just be in the status quo and be where you're at and treading water. I also always learned if you just pick something and go for it, because I know myself too, I'll have like 10 projects that I want to do and I won't do any. Different times that I've learned in the past, that's like almost, what's the word? It's almost paralyzing. So you have to pick something and go for it. So I think a lot of people don't take those steps because they're either fear of failure or just fear of having to be responsible for whatever decision they make.
No, that's great. And I think fear does play a big factor. And, it could be fear could have different flavors, right? I mean, it could be the fear of rejection or the fear of failure or the fear of embarrassment. And, the list goes on and on and on. But I think what you're suggesting is sometimes you just have to take that fear into account and, make it your friend and still go for it. Take the actions. And once you are actually on the playing field, you can make the course correction as you deem fit and not wait for the perfect time to get in. No, that is really great. And so do you have your own personal strategies about how do you choose your projects?
Can you say that one more time?
It's like, how do you choose your own projects when you have to pick your projects? Is there a way or a methodology that you use when you have to make choices?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, yes, I would say that it has to feel, a lot of things, I think I would pick my projects on things that obviously make me feel good, but also things where I can make a difference with people. Because it's like I don't feel like I'll ever go out on my path to say I'm just going to go out to make money. I mean, I think it's more of how do I make a difference for people? How can I help people? I think I've always been in that place because I want to always know that whatever I'm doing makes a difference, and because that to me is fulfilling. Obviously, making money is very fulfilling also, but if you're not doing the first one and making a difference for someone, I think it eventually becomes like an empty. Not even an empty expression of who you are, but an empty, like you're just putting a lot of time into something that maybe is not filling you up emotionally and making you feel good about what you're doing.
No, I like that. It's really about making a contribution and making a difference. And no, that's great. So the next question I have for you is, what is the biggest lesson that you've learned about life in general that you would like to share with our audience?
Let me think about that one. Let me see. I mean, I've learned so many. I feel that, I think what I was saying earlier, that nobody's going to care about your life as much as you do. Because it's true. You always think people will have your best interest, and they do. Most people do. But when it's like down to the wire and it really comes down to it, you don't always know what people are going to do. And you have to really know yourself and know what you deserve and know, and just really, I don't know, what is the word was I saying? I was saying just you really have to know what you want in life because no one else is going to create that for you. I guess that's the biggest lesson. You have to know what you want, know what you're worth, and really be responsible for your life because nobody, as much as you want, and mentors, yes, thank God they're in life and they're amazing, but you also have to take actions for yourself and create your life every step of the way.
Oh, that's great. I like that. It's really about personal responsibility. It's about taking charge of your own life and, of course, seeking advice from your mentors and all that, but really caring for yourself and knowing what you're worth and what your strengths are and designing your life. No, I totally dig that. So the other question I have for you is what is the best book you've read, or what are some of the books that you've gifted or reread over the years?
One I read years back, and gosh, it's been so many years. I feel like really early on, before I ever did any personal development work in life, I don't think there were many seminars out there at that time. It was called Dare to Dream. And if I can even remember, I just remember always stuck in my brain, even just the title was Dare to Dream. And it took you through even like very basic exercises of if you could do anything now, what would it be? You know, what has to happen for you to have your best life? You know, questions that were always thought-provoking and was really kind of made you think instead of just like, you know, you're going to work every day. It's like, no, what does it really mean to have a life that you love? So Dare to Dream was one of them, the 4-hour work week, Good to Great. Those are a couple that I absolutely love.
Yeah, so I think the Dare to Dream was written by, I think, Michael Slaughter, and the 4-hour work week is by Tim Ferriss. Totally highly recommend the 4-hour work week. It's one of my all-time favorites as well. And that's great. And we'll include this in the show notes for our audience here. The next question I do have for you is, and this is interesting. I know you just started in the world of parenting. So what advice would you give to someone who's just, got into the domain of marriage and parenting, or what lessons have you learned about parenting in this short time?
That's such a good question. I would say choose your partner really well. I feel so blessed to have met somebody who is so aligned with the same way of life. Like, we laugh constantly, like, you're me, like, we're the same person. That's what we joke about. But I have to say, before I went entering into the world of marriage, I mean, obviously you're making a commitment for life, and that's a big, big deal. Now, my husband and I, we didn't know each other that long, but something clicked with us that we knew we were meant to be together. And I know people will hear that and say, oh, yeah, right, but the reality is it's true. And we felt that and we knew that. And I think we're just so similar in our thinking and so aligned in, like, the vision of what we wanted in life. And he's, like, such a creator and constantly, let's do this, and an adventure. Like, these qualities were so much part of me that we were of him. And so we entered the world of marriage, like, so peacefully. It was like there was no stress around it. I don't think there should be, but it's such an easy transition because he's such like a power partner for me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think when people get into the world of, finding their partner in life and their person they're going to share life with, it's like, wow, make sure those people are aligned with what your vision is in the same type of energy and they vibrate at the same frequency, right? People say that too. But that's truly what we talk about parenting as, like, partnership parenting, right? Because you're helping each other, and there's not one day where I feel like I'm doing everything ever. Like, he is we're supporting each other 100% each. If he has something going on one night, I'm there for him, and vice versa. Like, I'm getting this call, and he took Carter, our little boy, bowling to meet friends. It's like, you just have to pick up where the other leaves off, and I think that's very, very important. So we actually started our vlog, Boss Parents, because we're both working parents, and we felt that it was really important to kind of share our experience of how we juggle and how we work together to be parents. So.
No, that is great, and we'll include that in our show notes as well. And I think the underlying theme that what I'm hearing is, as you said, choose wisely. I think that's. I think it was Tony Robbins who said there's 90% of having a soulmate or having a great partnership is about choosing the right person, and I think that is so great. And then the other piece of it is, as you said, it's partnership. It's be it parenting, be it supporting each other and being the power partner for each other. And that's so great. It's awesome. And again, congratulations on this 1-year anniversary. I mean, that's so great. And yeah. And then the next question I have for you is, and this is, Lindsey, this is a hypothetical situation. Let's say we have a time machine, and then, if you could go back in time and talk to your young self, let's say your 20-year-old young self, what advice would you give her?
I would say, good question, because that was the time when I made some big decisions. I would say, if I can give my advice at that time, I would say, know your value and know your worth, and really believe that you have something to offer. Some people, I felt like I didn't struggle with that, but I always felt like I had something to contribute. I just didn't know who I was fully. Like, I knew I had intelligence. I knew I had, an education. I knew I had something to offer. I didn't know how to package that up to say, this is me, and and I know my 100% value. And I say that more in a professional standpoint, So it's like, if I was back in time, I would say, always believe, surround yourself with powerful people who lift you up and support you, and just make sure when you're putting yourself in a job or a business or any type of working environment that it truly is aligned with who you are and what you want in life. Because I put myself into, I don't want to say hedge fund accounting, but a very, very small niche type of environment that didn't align with me. Like, every day felt like it was a challenge because it just wasn't who I was. And I'd say at that age, don't be afraid to make a decision, to walk away and make bold decisions, to really find what it is that lights you up and fulfills you. And don't be afraid, because, you can go create something else, and there's always something else out there.
No, I like that. That's really great. It's about surrounding yourself with powerful people, and then really knowing your value, and really choosing the projects or choosing the track that is in alignment with who you really are. And I think that's so great. So wonderful insight and words of wisdom here. The next question is, and these are some of the questions we've received from our small business owners and entrepreneurs. And so the first question I have for you is, what, in your opinion, as a CFO that's been, rated as one of the top performing CFOs here in San Diego, is, so my question is, what is the key, in your opinion, to a successful budget?
The fast answer would be one that you can stick to, but of course, right? But I think for a business owner, it's very, very important to really understand what does it take to run the business. And when you're building your budget, you also have to plan for the worst case scenario, which I always talk about, having a cushion for the worst case scenario. Because that's, as finance people, that's what I have to always plan for. Because if something does happen that's not obviously the way that the business is hoping to go, right? Which I always joke, I can't plan on hope. Even though you hope that you get more clients and we hope we got this and this is our plan, I have to plan for the actual business here and now. This is what we have. So I say when you're creating a budget, it's one that you can stick to, and really, really, truly understanding the cost of the business. Can you operate at your very, very leanest at a certain number, and then you build into it the hopeful things, right? Yes, we want to do this. Yes, we want to hire people. Here's the forecast. So you have to build in all those factors. But at the very, very worst case scenario is how you have to kind of plan, and then you can add to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And it's about something that you can stick to is the foundational principle there. And then secondly, having a baseline that you can start building on it. So, oh, that's great. The second question is, in today's day and age, it's so competitive out there, regardless of what industry you're in. And I'm in the, I've worked and consulted in different industries all the way from manufacturing to services. And it's just a retail and, marketing. And it's just been like an IT now and technology and aviation now for the last many years. So, when business is challenging, and what are some of the key steps? And this is more of a high level kind of foundational principles in your opinion. Where can the company start, or a CEO can start looking at tightening their belts? And what I mean by that is, most businesses are trying to run lean, right? They're trying to cut down on cost. They're trying to figure out, okay, what projects to cut, how much staff can be retained, and how can the spending be deferred, right? So what would you say are some of the foundational principles as a CFO would you recommend when CEO, when they have to deal with challenging times?
Very good question. I think the CFO, you always have to have a backup plan. So, again, a step-by-step backup plan. A lot of businesses will have lines of credit, will have savings, will have all these different places where you can pull from if it was like a temporary downturn, right? But I say you always have to think of the planning. So it's like, okay, let's tighten up expenses, number one. Then you've got, do you leverage lines of credit? Do you step in, pull from some savings? Do you lay off employees? In a service-based business, number one thing that I know that we're committed to is never having to lay off one single person. And we've stuck by that now for 15 years. But that is something that goes into the planning because you never want your payroll, if your labor costs to exceed a certain percentage of your revenue. So you always have that big gap in between, where you can start cutting out some of those expenses and tightening things up. Obviously, your rent and your overhead and things like that, the only way to really cut those out is obviously to end your lease and everybody works from home. But things like if you need to retain your staff, obviously that's number one, if you can, and if it makes sense to still service the revenue that you're bringing in. But there's other places to cut. And then if it is a temporary downturn, obviously there are steps that I always say, well, there's always a scenario too. No exact right answer. Do we borrow from here? Do we take from here? You may not want to do that, but if it is a very short downturn time, maybe you do. But, if it goes a certain number of, say, a month or two or whatever that timeline is that makes sense for your business model, then you have to take some other steps. So I would say always have a plan. Always think ahead. Say, okay, if this happened, here's what we would do first, step 1 through 5. And so they may be scenario-based, but I would say for business owners to always be thinking one step ahead at the worst-case scenario. Again, it's like I get people joke with me saying I'm the CF no. You're always the no for things because obviously the business owners have the vision and they want to spend the money, but we're like the reality and like the gut check of having to run things, with the worst case scenario in mind. It's not the most fun situation to be in to always think like that, but it is the reality of how we have to run numbers. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. It certainly does. And I think what I'm hearing is, you got to have a backup plan in place. That's the first and foremost. And the second is there are always ways, and no one particular strategy fits any particular business. I mean, you got to look at, where can we juggle costs, right? I mean, really, what can we cut down on? And really, I mean, there are fixed expenses with any businesses and there are variable expenses. So you got to look at, what kind of portfolio you can kind of play with and tweak and tune and that kind of stuff. The next question is tied into this. And this is like, assuming, and again, this is, no company has unlimited funds. We know that. But what are some key principles do you think a CFO or a CEO can keep in mind when it comes to, identifying the right allocation of funds towards growth projects or things of that nature?
Great question. I would say a percentage of that. I think again that goes to yes. There's no exact answer for each type of business. However, I think there should always be a percentage of revenue that you're putting aside as safeguarding the business. And in that same sense, that could be your savings. But in the same sense, maybe a percentage of every revenue you make goes now towards your growth project. And that always keeps you, so you're not always saying it's a flat number, but it is a percentage of what you're bringing in. So you obviously bring in more money, you're going to have more money to spend towards those growth projects, or more money to spend towards, allocating resources to those growth projects, whatever they may be. Maybe it needs more people, maybe it needs more, maybe it needs another office, whatever it might be. I think always having a percentage of what you're bringing in go towards it. So you're not overextending and you're not really disrupting how you're running the business now. But you can say, okay, from this day forward, we're going to say 5 to 10% of our revenue is going to go towards this growth project. Or even if you want to decrease your percentage of savings every month for the safeguarding the business or tax planning, those types of things, you can say, we're going to cut that down a little bit because we're going to put more money into these growth projects and it's not really going to disrupt the tax planning and all the other things we have going. It's just going to help us potentially improve the business. So I always think a percentage of what you're bringing in is a really safe way to do it.
Okay, great, excellent, and that's awesome. I think it's what you're saying is percentage of revenues is channeled towards growth-related projects, and again, if the revenues increase, you're increasing the percentage towards these kind of portfolio projects. No, that's awesome. And just for the benefit of our audience here, Lindsey has been nominated to San Diego Business Journal CFO of the Year for 3 consecutive years. And she's also serves on the steering committee of the CFO Leadership Council. And in 2015, she participated in the California Real Estate and Women Leadership Series, where she was one of the 6 panelists chosen to discuss their role in the success of the San Diego community. So, and with that, we'll move on to our next section. This is our rapid fire round, and And this is a section where I'm going to ask you a bunch of quick questions, and whatever the first response comes to your mind. Again, this is a fun section. If you want to elaborate on it, feel free to do so. But again, this is the rapid fire round. So my first question to you, Lindsey, are you ready?
I think I'm ready.
All right. So the first question is, what is your favorite color?
Blue.
Do you believe in magic?
I do, actually, yes.
If God exists, can she be trusted?
100%. Yes.
Okay, tell me something that is true that almost nobody agrees with you on.
Oh, wow, this is a good one. I don't know. Oh, my goodness. This is when we got me stumped. Well, let me think about that one.
That's why I started off with the easy ones there.
You sure did. Something that is true that almost nobody agrees with you on.
Or it could be like a superstition. I don't know. I'm just making things up, like,
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
Okay, we'll pass on that. We'll get back to it if it comes to your mind.
Okay.
Okay, the next one. Whose brain would you like to have had?
Oh, gosh. Would I've liked to have had? I think Warren Buffett's pretty awesome. I also think Steve Jobs is pretty awesome, but I'm also leaning towards Jeff Bezos from Amazon.
Well, that's great. If you could be successful in another profession, which would you choose?
Maybe public speaking.
That's great.
Yes, public speaking, or just entrepreneur. I would be a venture capitalist after that. I would want to invest in people's ideas.
Well, that's great. And then the next question is, what rock star has impressed you?
Oh, God. I'm not the rock star. I'm not the star type of person, but let me think about this one. Who is it? You know who I love as a rock star? I think Pink is absolutely awesome. She is so true to her core and is like kind of like if I can say it, a badass. And it's totally awesome.
That's great. And then the final question in the rapid fire round is, if you could have any message of your choice on a billboard, what would that be?
Ooh, have any message of your choice on a billboard, what would that be? Always be yourself.
That's awesome. Great. That wraps up our rapid fire round, and then we are moving on to our final section, and I've got three last questions for you. So the first question is, Lindsey, what is your current personal or business passion project that you're working on, and what are you looking forward to in the next 6 months to a year from now?
Oh, this is so exciting. I have to say my husband and I am working on, there's been a passion project that I've had in my mind for a long time, and it really is truly going to help with people planning their life, organizing their life. And I know this sounds terrible, but it's just the ultimate goal is to decrease the turmoil that family members feel when a family member passes away. I just have found that there is such a need for this type of planning or organizational model that doesn't quite exist in the way that I see it, that it could exist. So there's something that we're working on that can hopefully make a difference for families when it comes down to being organized, just in the case of anything ever happening. Like in the case of my husband, he has lost a lot of people in his life, and it was spurred by a couple different things, and that's a passion project we're working on to ultimately help people with that aspect of like kind of end of life planning.
That's so great, so inspiring. The next question is, what are 3 things you're grateful for in life today?
Oh, hands down, I'm grateful for my family, my healthy baby boy, my amazing husband, and I'm also grateful for being able to have knowledge and experiences that I've had in life that really have connected me to the people I'm connected with, like you, like people in my life who I just, even though years have gone by, it's like you can still be connected, and I think that is such an awesome thing.
Great. Thank you for saying that. And I want to acknowledge you, Lindsey, for a couple of things. One, for really being a proud wife and a mother to a 7-month-old baby boy, Carter, and then really being connected in the community, and then being such a role model for all of us to really take on projects that are challenging and that pushes our limits, but really doing so in a way that is true to our own self and our own calling, and then showing us the way of how to be surrounded with powerful and amazing people. And then the other thing I want to acknowledge you for is also for taking on projects in the community, like people who have lost loved ones, and creating a model for them so that he can make a difference and contribute to their lives as well. So thank you for being such an amazing being in our community, and for everything that you do, Lindsey.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, and thank you very much. And then one final question, and this is how we wrap up all our interviews, and that is, why do you think people should listen to the Wisdom of Friends?
Oh, easy answer. I think you are bringing on the key people from different walks of life, I feel, that are really can shed some light on and some inspiration for your listeners. And I think it really is just an awesome program you have here, and the structure of it and the questioning. I think it's set out to make a big difference for people, and people can find some guidance and some inspiration. So definitely listen.
No, great. I so appreciate that. And again, thank you so much for your time and your candid answers. I truly valued our conversation here tonight. And for those of us listening, with that, we'll wrap it up. And if you like what you heard, please share. Don't be shy.
Thanks for listening to the Wisdom of Friends show with Cal Arras. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, theglobalcontribution.com. To your friends and colleagues, be sure to check out our archive section on our website for previous episodes. This has been a Seven Symphonies production. Join us next time for another edition of the Wisdom of Friends.